I think, obviously there was a lot of visual stuff in Monty Python, and there was a lot of cerebral stuff, but I mean, that was John Cleese, you know, he was being clever all the time, you know. Mike and me, we just wanted to be funny.
Pour Eric le Viking, voici Terry Jones. Only for You, auto-interview tournée avant la disparition du Monty Python. Graham Chapman, le brillant de la vie de Brian, Dieu et son âme.
Terry, what exactly did you do with the Monty Python team? I'm surprised you asked me that question personally. I thought you knew, but I mean, I directed Life of Brian, I directed Meaning of Life, and I co-directed Sacré Graal avec Terry Gilliam. Now, Terry, don't you think that the success of Monty Python came from what is visual in Munchausen and what is cerebral in A Fish Called Wanda? Oh, I'm sorry, just drifted off there for a few moments. Well, yeah, I think there is a bit of that in it. I think, obviously there was a lot of visual stuff in Monty Python, and there was a lot of cerebral stuff, but I mean, that was John Cleese, you know, he was being clever all the time, you know. Mike and me, we just wanted to be funny. And Harry, what do you think of the work of the Beatles after they split up? John Lennon wrote some of the best songs ever after they split. I mean, I think Imagine is my all-time favourite, I think, of all those songs. And Terry, unlike Personal Services, Eric the Viking actually came from a book that you originally wrote for your son, isn't that right? Yes, I originally wrote this series of stories called The Saga of Eric the Viking for my son, Bill. But it was about 1983, and I thought, well, it might make a jolly good film because there's some good images in it. But after a while, I got a bit bored with that. I thought, well, you know, you've written it as a story, it's published as a book. I mean, I don't want to go and spend 2 years of my life turning it into a film. So I sort of abandoned the idea after trying it, a few scripts of it. And suddenly I found this rape scene, which is now the first scene in the film. And I'd written it for something else. And I suddenly found it in a drawer, and I thought, hey, that's quite a funny scene, and maybe there's a story there. So I suddenly wrote something that was totally different. So although it's called Eric the Viking, it's not the same as the children's book at all. I mean, there's no rape scene in the children's book. And I just used a couple of incidents, the Dragon of the North Sea and Going Over the Edge of the World. Well, Personal Services, of course, I didn't write for Bill. It's based on a true story. It's based on a story about Cynthia Payne, who was a real-life lady in London who ran this brothel in a very respectable South London suburb. Nobody knew about it until the police raided her one day. So Eric the Viking's kind of really me getting more onto the right track again. Now, Terry, imagine that I am a rich, famous Hollywood producer. How would you get $12 million out of me? Oh, I'd try and get you into bed, you know, and see you, but that doesn't usually work with most of them. So the next thing, I come along to you see, with this wonderful idea called Eric the Viking. And I've got Alan Lee to draw all these pictures, these nice pictures, because being a Hollywood producer, I know you can't read. So I show you these pictures and I tell you this story. And then ask if you'll go to bed with me, but not much chance, I suppose. And if I were a very lazy moviegoer, how would you sell this film to me? Well, if you're a really lazy moviegoer, I'd try and sell it you for £3, I think. No, Terry, is it true that you gave a part to John Cleese in order to get money from Scandinavia? In fact, I didn't want to give the part to John Cleese at all. What happened was John offered to be in the film if we really were sure, if we couldn't raise the money. And I said, no, I don't want any Monty Python references whatsoever. And then about a month later, I read in one of our awful English newspapers an interview with John Cleese in which he said that he was going to play a part in my film. So I had to offer it to him after that. Now, isn't the whole Hi Brazil episode an allegory of the English, German and Dutch people in the Balearic Islands during the summer? Well, of course, that was foremost in my mind when I was writing it, but I think now I tend to think that it's more general allegory about the sort of the kind of politicians who are going around saying everything's perfectly all right, you know. I mean, In England, for example, our milk is all radioactive nowadays. We've got sort of the sheep farms in France, the sheep farms in Scotland and Wales. You can't eat the meat because of the radioactivity. There's sort of 20 miles of Cumbrian coastline that's radioactive. And Mrs. Thatcher goes around saying, radioactivity is the most environmentally friendly form of energy there is. Terry, why do you prefer Keaton, W.C. Fields and Tatty to Charlie Chaplin? Chaplin was really funny, but he wanted everything. He wanted you to laugh at him, he wanted you to admire him, he wanted you to feel sorry for him. And I mean, when you look at Chaplin's films, he very rarely gives a laugh to anybody else. Whereas Keaton could sort of, he wasn't demanding everything for his own screen persona. And W.C. Fields would sort of, made himself really unpleasant, especially when he was dealing with children. I suppose it's just because I like Keaton as a man, I think. I prefer him to Chaplin. Now, in what rock and roll band does this guy Chaucer, who you've written a book about, play? He died about 600 years ago. He was a great British poet. For God's sake, you know Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer. He wrote the first poems in the English language, Canterbury Tales, all that sort of stuff. And he lived in England in the 14th century. You know. Finally, Terry, are you pleased to see me in the mirror every morning when you wake up? Well, I don't know how to put this actually, Terry. You know, I've been meaning to tell you for quite a while that I think you're getting not quite so pretty. You know, a little bit fat around there, and bags under the eyes, and I'm afraid it rather turns me off. I mean, I know. You know, I used to love you very much, but I'm afraid it's a bit of a turn-off nowadays. Perhaps you could smarten your act up a bit, eh?
Et pour être sûr de ne rien rater de Inarditube, abonnez-vous et mettez un pouce bleu.